Hello and welcome at our GCP Mindset channel. Today I have a known guest here with me and we speak about the differences between Europe and India. Deepa, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Andreas. It's nice hosting me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hello Deepa. Thank you very much for being here. You are coming from India, from Mumbai, correct?
Yes.
It's a long distance and it's, of course, I think you are the guest with the longest distance up to now. Thank you very much. It's actually great for having you here. And we speak a little bit about the differences between the EU and India, especially, of course, the impact on clinical research. Let's start with the population. Yeah, I know that we in Europe, we have about 450 million people. What's about India?
Yeah, we are 1.4 billion people. It's a huge population and we have a lot of diversity also in terms of we have therapy-naive patients, treatment-resistant patients, patients being treated at the private hospitals and the public hospitals, patients who have good access to the healthcare, as well as the patients who have who do not have access to the healthcare.
Yeah.
And we also have, because it's when it comes to the percentage and proportions, we also have relatively large number of the patients with rare disorders.
Yeah. Okay. So that means we have much more patients in India than in Europe or in the EU. In EU, we have 27 member states actually, and more than 20 languages. I think even 25 languages. In India, as far as I know, you have also not just one language, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So in India, we have states and a federal government. So when it comes to the clinical trials, the environment is more like the US, which means that only there is one central agency that approves clinical trials, all sorts of clinical trials, be it drugs or devices for the country. Languages are different, but when it comes to communication by this central agency, it's known as CDSCO, which is like the regulatory body or competent authority in India. They communicate in English. We speak different languages, but they impact only the patient-facing material. When it comes to communications with the sponsors or the CROs, English is the language. So the only translations that we need is for the patient-facing materials, questionnaires, EPROs, or the most important, informed consent documents.
Okay, that sounds already easier than in the EU, where we have all these languages. We have a lot of ethics committees. We have different competent authorities involved. We should have now one reporting member states which should approve the study, but of course all the other member states might say, no, in our country the study should not start, which is another hurdle again. And in general, with the new portal, the CTIS system, it lasts more than 100 days to get a study started. What is with your timelines? How fast are you in India?
So in India, we have 90 days is what our CDSCO portal says that, we have to, the approvals will be 90 days, which is, I would say, more or less similar. Though in our experience, we have received approvals earlier. And for the Indian, the products developed by Indian manufacturers, it's 30 days. So it's not that in general, the process is slow. It's sometimes the applications are larger in number. So as a caution, the CDSCO office says 90 days. For one of our Indian clients, we got first in man approval within 18 days, 18 days.
Yeah.
So we have seen very good progress with the regulators. But having said that, even let's assume that we are getting the approvals in 90 days as it says in the book. Still, we have a lot of advantage in terms of the study startup time, because we can have EC approval process and the competent authority approval process, which is CDSCO, in parallel. And because of our large number of patients, the recruitment itself can be at a very high pace. So that's another advantage. advantage where we can add the value
Yeah.
to the overall trial.
Yeah, again, that's of course a huge advantage. In Europe, we have also the availability of drugs on the market with a market approval is extremely high. I mean, on average, 80% of all drugs which are available worldwide are also available in Europe for the patients. Yeah? And then, of course, when something which is good is on the market already, it's not a motivational factor anymore for a patient to say, oh yeah, I want to also join the study. Do you know the availability in India?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very relevant question. In India, we do not have a health insurance coverage by the state. So people have to, buy their own medicines. Some people purchase personal health insurance. So the people who are poor, for them it's a motivation to join in the clinical trials. And this can be particularly relevant for the studies of biosimilar products.
Yeah.
I myself have a relevant experience when in 2007 I was working on the human insulin global development for a company. That time when we wanted to conduct the trial in Europe because we wanted European approvals for the biosimilars. I mean, we were clearly told by the sites that they will not be able to enroll the patients because they're already getting an approved insulin from the state as well as the newer insulins also. Many countries in Europe, they were even able to provide insulin glargine and the improved insulins to the patients. So that is always like, I understand the challenge and we have that advantage that, it's a kind of involving those patients in the studies win-win situation. Company may be benefited as well as, company will be benefited definitely by including India as well as the patients will be benefited because they will get the investigational product, the medicine, as well as they will get the good medical coverage also.
Yeah. Okay. And when you describe your population in India, it sounds and your patients need to pay for the study, not for the study medication, but for the medication on the market. And I think you have not the richest population in Europe. All member states are considered rich according to the Social World Index. We are rich countries except Bulgaria. They are also poor, but all the other countries are compared to the countries worldwide, we are rich. I think India, that's completely different.
Yeah, of course. I mean, not a good thing to say, but we are not one of the rich countries. And that's where it will always be advantageous to include, patients in the trials. Patient would be willing because they will get, either they will be in the treatment arm or, or the comparator arm. So they would be very much interested in participating in the trials.
Yeah. And then, of course, I can also imagine that your prices for conducting a clinical study are lower than in Europe.
Yes. So overall, I think when we just considered the sites, the prices are around 20 to 40%. Some sites may need some additional supplies, for example, deep freezers or cold centrifuge or some other support. But still, even considering that, the pricing would be somewhere between 30 to 40%. And as such, CRA prices are also low.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. So one reason more to going to India. But then I'm wondering why not more studies are conducted already in India. Is there a good reason, or is it just that you have less biotech and less pharma companies and for the US companies, the step to going to India or the Asian countries, it's still too big, it's too far away. What's the reason for that?
Okay, that's a very good question. So first of all, let me describe like this. In India, if you plan to market a product, it's good that you have already included Indian population during phase 3. And it's all the more better if Indian populations are included during phase 2. So all the big companies like Pfizer, GSK, AstraZeneca, all big companies, they are planning India as Indian sites in their global phase 3 clinical trials, and many times in phase 2 clinical trials also. And this has been continuously happening. They have big clinical operations facilities in India, the bigger companies, and Indian sites are almost always there in their global development plans, and Indian patients are thereby included. It helps them getting their approvals faster. If they do not have included patients for any reason during phase 3 development, then they would be required to do an additional study, sometimes before approval and many times after approval also. Depends on the overall safety of the product and overall requirement for the patients in the market, but it would be required. So we have seen a lot of these studies in India, which have been always ongoing. Between 2009 and until new clinical trial drug rules came between 2000, they were released in 2019, the new drugs and clinical trial rules. So we had seen a kind of drop in the clinical trials being conducted in India because the regulations were not clear. We had some trouble before that. Before 2008-9, there were some not very good things happened. So the government was hesitant to approve more global trials, though they continued to approve the phase 3 trials, like I mentioned, for the drugs which will be eventually launched in India by Big Pharma, where they saw a scope for Indian patients, but they were not approving all the trials in India. In 2019, the new drugs and clinical trials rules that were released, they gave a lot of clarity on what is expected by the competent authority, what is expected from the EC, not only like competent authorities' role, but all the stakeholders' roles have been very much clearly incorporated in this. And pretty recently, last week of April, I was at European Commission. We were discussing about the regulations around healthy volunteer studies. We are developing, there's a group under INSAM. We are developing an ethical guidance on involvement of healthy volunteers in clinical trials. So when we were talking about the Indian regulations, we noted that, we were way ahead of Europe and US because we basically learned from Europe and US authorities the information available, as well as there were trainings of Indian authorities by FDA and MHRA and other European authorities. And the regulations that have come, they include the best of both the worlds. And so they are very well drafted now. And 2019, of course, the regulations were released in March. People were just looking at the things slowly. We had seen very good experience we had with regulators. We got approvals quickly, like I mentioned. They were considerate when we went for the global trials to them, and they discussed, and they only gave those suggestions which they thought were absolutely necessary for Indian patients. Otherwise, they didn't want to disturb the global protocols. They said it's global protocol, let's do only what is bare minimum necessary. So we saw a very good experience there, and I think people were slowly watching, and then COVID happened. But COVID, of course, India did very well as a country during COVID in terms of vaccine trials and overall. So at the moment, the situation is very good. We are seeing more and more companies coming to India, and we are expecting that it's going to further increase. And that's where I think regulators are becoming more careful. In fact, they are taking some very bold decisions for the first time. We have the head of the regulatory agency, somebody who has industry experience also. It has never happened in the past. So we saw a very senior person, Dr. Rajiv Raghuvanshi, joining as the head of the agency pretty recently, a few months back only. He was working with a big pharma company. So it's a kind of very positive step from the government, getting in the people from the industry in the agency. And I think this is going to be more positive impact on overall clinical development in India. we are going to see more trials and more innovations happening.
Yeah, I can imagine that also the cost pressure and the time pressure will move more studies into your direction. You just told us that a lot of companies start with a phase 2 study in India just to get the approval for the phase 3 study faster, and then also to get a market approval faster. What is with phase 1 trials? As far as I know, the Chinese require, before they start with a phase 2 study in China, that we are doing a phase 1 study in Chinese people. Otherwise, we cannot continue with phase 2 and phase 3 studies in China. Do you have the same requirement in India?
In India, you cannot do a phase 1 study in India if the product is not developed in India.
Okay.
That's one.
So that's then the opposite. You even don't allow a phase 1 study when it's not in India on the market, or?
No. But if the product is not developed it's developed outside India, you cannot do a first-in-man study in India.
Okay.
First-in-human study.
Okay.
Right?
So your competent authority then always relies on data of first-in-man study from outside India?
Yes. So, for example, if the first-in-man study is only done in one population, then they will not, they will be very careful. For example, if the phase 1 study is done only in Chinese, then of course you'll have to repeat that. If you already have enough diversity in the phase 1 study in terms of racial diversity and of course gender diversity, they may ask still to repeat a phase 1 study as per the regulation. But we recently have conducted phase 2 studies without the requirement to repeat phase 1 studies.
Okay.
Because there was enough, diversity of population in the phase 1, and the data was good in phase 1. There were no safety concerns.
Okay.
So it's like, I would say it's a mix kind of thing. But generally, because we are also Caucasians mainly in India, so if studies are already done in Caucasian populations, or we have approvals for phase 2 in Europe or US, then we get approvals usually.
Okay.
That's what we have seen.
Yeah. I know India is also very known for bioequivalence studies, which are not very frequently conducted in Europe. And we never have done a bioequivalence study in Europe. What's the reason for that?
Yeah, so India is known as the pharmacy of the world. In fact, in the last year, around 50% of the generic drug approvals, ANDA approvals in the US, were from India. So when it comes to the generic drugs, you need a bioequivalence study. And because Indian companies have done really well in developing the generic drugs, and they need bioequivalence studies, which are almost always they prefer to conduct in India, which is fairly acceptable for the FDA or EMA to approve those drugs with the data generated in India. So that's why lots of studies are conducted in India. And because of the regulations, if you have different RLD, which we will have, of course, in Europe, US, South Africa, or for example, in several other countries, Canada, Australia, then for the same product, you might be doing 5-6 studies to show the equivalence if the company plans to market in all those regions. So we're doing lots and lots of bioequivalence studies. Many of my team members, they have experience of working in bioequivalence studies, and within 3 years, they had experience of working in 400 studies kind of thing.
Oh, unbelievable. That's a lot. So actually, there is actually no good reason for not doing a study in India.
No, I think there are several good reasons. I haven't, in fact, elaborated all of them.
Yeah.
Normally when I meet people and who do not know, I always invite them to do a kind of proof of concept or start with the feasibility to understand how India is like, what kind of recruitment rates they will expect, what kind of patients they are. In fact, I also asked some companies to plan a trial rescue if they are struggling with the recruitments in Europe or US, and they're not able to meet the targets, they are most welcome to contact us and discuss with us what kind of feasibility is there, what kind of timelines we expect for approvals. Of course, there will be certain protocols which we see that they may not be approved in India. We can upfront review that, because we have got some fair information available in public domain about what kind of protocols are not approved by the Indian authorities, and what kind of drugs are not acceptable. We can tell them about that. Or some certain products like controlled substances, the approval timeline can be very, very long. So we can discuss about that. But for most of other products, I think India should be the go-to destination.
Yeah,
Let's include it.
Okay. So yeah, maybe our video then also brings more companies also to the idea to risk a new step actually. And they don't need to do the study 100% in India, but start with a couple of study sites in India to speed up the recruitment, because all are suffering from bad recruitment and complain about the timeline they have internationally, and then it really makes sense to go to India.
Yes, and as we got delayed, one is, of course, we are losing the time, and in drug development we know time is the money. And then, of course, in general, India also provides the advantage of cost optimization. So, like revalidating your point, you can just de-risk your study. You don't need to think 100% of the study in India. Try with, some sites, few sites, or maybe before that, understand the feasibility, and then open some sites. It's not, overall impacting your current plan. It will always add value to that.
So, Deepa, let's come to an end. Could you confirm once again, for the sponsors who maybe still hesitate to go to India, that first you're running your clinical studies according to ICH, GCP, you're also compliant with the Declaration of Helsinki, and that you also comply with the normal international data protection rules?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So we are compliant with ICH GCP, Declaration of Helsinki, as well as with the general data protection rules. So in fact, all the team members are trained. The sites are well trained on all these regulations, and the data generated from India is very high quality. It has been always, in the global trials, we have seen them, FDA and other regulators accepting that data. We see a lot of, FDA inspections, site inspections happening from FDA and other regulators. And when we propose the sites to the sponsors, we normally, propose the sites which have been already inspected by the FDA and other regulators.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a nice summary. So there's no reason anymore to hesitate. Everybody should go to India and involve India into their international clinical studies. Thank you very much for all the information you shared with us. Okay, I hope that you also liked our video. Leave us your comments and questions and subscribe our channel. See you the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.